Hello, everyone, and welcome to Worthy, a New Covenant podcast. It's your host, Mike Day, alongside our guest today, Miss Jill Harris. How are you doing today?
I'm good.
Good, good. Life been good for you?
Yeah, we made it through the tornado, so we're good.
Yes. You guys will be listening to this a week after the weather, but I hope everyone stayed safe in the weather that came through Dadeville, Montgomery, and all the way, even if you're listening through Mississippi, our prayers are with you guys and Missouri. I know it was really rough in Missouri as well. So who knows where you guys are listening from. So we want to include everyone. And Texas and Oklahoma. I know that there was some talks of wildfires in Texas, and I know there's confirmed wildfires in Oklahoma. So our prayers are with you guys. So to start us out today, let's just talk about who you are. We can just start with, what your position is at the church, and then about what you did before you got into ministry.
Okay. My position at the church has evolved over the years. When I was first hired, I was just hired as Pastor Ronnie's secretary, which he always called me his administrative assistant. So I thought that was kind of sweet that he did that. But about a year and a half into just working here at the church 2 days a week, started working with kids ministry and eventually moved into the children's director position, which I've been in now for, gosh, I don't know how many years, a long time. So that's what I do now. I take care of all the office needs, balancing the checkbook, paying the bills, doing the deposits, typing letters, reaching out when people are out, checking in, especially with kids ministry. I try my best to always reach out to the parents and to the kids if they've been missing for a little bit, just so they know that we're thinking of them and that we miss them. So I do lots of things, just whatever I need to do, I do.
Yeah.
So, but kids ministry and the administrative part of the church is what I was hired to do.
Okay, so you do the administrative stuff and kids ministry, so not just, but you're usually presented as kids minister, right?
Yes,
Correct.
yes,
Okay, so
yes.
but you do a lot of things. But what did you do? You made a comment saying that you were here when Pastor Ronnie was here. So in my mind, I've only known Pastor Guy. So what did you do before ministry?
Yeah, before ministry, I worked as, wow, that's a long story. So every job I have had has prepared me for what I do now. Yeah. So before, when I started here, right before then, I worked for the Department of Human Resources in foster care. So I did that as, that was my career. That was what my degree was in college. Prior to that, I worked in an attorney's office and had my paralegal. So just lots of things. Worked in a tax office while I was going to school. Waitressed. I think everybody should waitress.
Yeah.
I think it teaches us valuable things that we all need to know. But before I started here, I was at the Department of Human Resources in foster care. And that was...
So when did you actually start at the church?
I started coming here in 2001, April 2001. And then I started working here in, I don't remember the month, but it was 2006, I believe.
Okay.
2005, 2006.
4 or 5 years before you actually went in. And if you don't mind me asking, what do you remember the experience that you had that was like, okay, I really need to do, I really feel called into this ministry?
Well, I've been called into ministry since I was 13.
Okay.
So I just didn't know what that looked like. If we're saved, we're called to ministry.
Right.
So when Jesus called me, November of my 7th grade year, my mom and dad, we were at revival, and a friend of mine was there with me, and I kept playing that Step My Foot Outside the pew, wanting to go down. And my mom and dad realized that. And so they asked the pastor to come over to our house that night. And so a very important moment in my life, important that I did ask Jesus in my heart and I got saved, but my friend also got saved. And the comment that she made that always has stuck with me was, can I ask him too? Because all the focus was on me and she was just sitting there listening. And so that really made me aware of how important people are and that everybody has great value and that nobody is left behind, that God calls all of us. It's just when we're ready to receive and accept. But anyway, so that really then my life changed. I was a very overweight, depressed sixth grader looking for acceptance. I always felt like I was left out. But when I asked Jesus in my heart, it was like everything changed. It's like even the smallest things in my life changed. I didn't feel that need to be in a popular group.
Right.
I just felt a call to just care about people, even at that young age. And that's where that's why I say I feel like I've always been called to ministry, because I just have seen people, that Jesus loves people. Right. I've seen that my whole life and that people need him. And I think that's why kids ministry is such a big part of my life, and that the Lord led me to that, because if we get them young, if they can hear about the Lord young and can know him young and know him as friend, then they can understand. Right. Savior, healer, redeemer, provider, whatever we need, we can understand that better.
Right. So you said you started coming here in 2002, correct? Or 2001?
2001, April.
2001. But in 2005, you were called to work here. So can you take us through that experience?
Of being called to work here? Well, the secretary, her husband had passed, and she had remarried, and so she was moving to Georgia. And so I guess because I had been heavily involved in kids ministry, even though I wasn't in charge of kids ministry, and I was visible at the church, and Pastor Ronnie just called me in one day, asked me to come by. I had left my job at DHR, so I'd been real honest. I had gone through a nervous breakdown. I had to leave the Department of Human Resources because I could not put the pain of that job in the right place. So I would carry that with me and just let it build until it finally pushed me away from the job, because I couldn't deal with it. I couldn't deal with all that was happening.
Right.
And so I left there. And in that middle of, after leaving, I did try to go back, and it was like, I'm not supposed to be here anymore. And it was shortly after that Pastor Ronnie, he knew I had left there. And so he asked me, the elders asked me if I would be interested in working 2 days a week at the church, just taking care of the business of the church, the administrative part. And I was like, sure, and it just grew from there.
Oh, okay. That's interesting. Cool how you felt like, and that was your first ministry job, or did you do things before, or?
Yeah, I did things before. I've done summer missions. Yeah. I've done youth work. I worked when I was in college. I was the youth pastor at First Baptist Shalom in Marion, Alabama. I went to Judson College. Then I was also an interim youth pastor at First Baptist Selma while I was in school at Judson. Again, just being open to whatever there. Yeah. And
well, you knew you were called since 7th grade, so it makes sense that when you're called for that, God's always going to put you in those positions.
Right.
So.
And I didn't look for them,
exactly.
So that was another part of it. And I guess it was always just real important that any job I had, I was very vocal about my faith, not in a you got to believe like I believe way, but people, just in conversation, I talked about my faith, and I talked about who God was and who he is.
Right.
And that, that I feel like that's why I say everybody is called to ministry. Jesus, because that's our opportunities, is that friendship evangelism.
Yeah.
So.
And I try to correct myself when I use the word ministry, because actually every Christian is called to ministry. Just we think of ministry as, the church, because ministry simply just means service. So, we're all called to be a service, but what I mean by that is just employed by the church. Full-time ministry, really.
Right, and missionaries, people that do and go, that is their position, right. Their work. So.
Right, so we've been talking about what you do at the church. I am curious. I want to stop and ask you, something, kind of fun. I've been doing this with many people, and previously it's cool to see everybody what they do outside of ministry, especially the full-time ministers here at the church. So what are your hobbies? What do you like to do outside of, ministry?
That was the hardest question for me to answer because I really don't have any specific hobbies. I love to work in the yard.
So that is a hobby.
So that is what I see as, because I get so much pleasure from just being outside and cleaning up and seeing, how the fall and the winter just kind of takes everything out. And then you get to clean it up and it's like, oh, this is just beautiful. So I would say probably that, because I'm not a big, I would love to sew. I would love to paint. I would love to do all those things that my sisters and my mama do so well. But I want it done yesterday.
Right.
So I don't do well at those kinds of hobbies, and sewing, that's just not my cup of tea.
Yeah, I understand that. I like being outside too.
Yeah.
So, kind of like garden. Do you have a garden?
No, I've tried a garden, but you plant it, you spend all this money, and you get out there the next day, and the rabbits have ate it all.
Yeah. Hey, I understand that. Yeah.
But no, it's just mostly cleaning the yard and flowers. It's more of just being outside, I think.
Yeah.
Now, my husband has a bonsai garden.
Oh, really?
So I do help him with that some, with, just helping him arrange plants or give him, my opinion on if that looks good or that don't look good. So that's fun.
Yeah. Being outside is fun. It is a hobby. Some people don't like to be that. Everybody's different.
Cutting the grass, that's the good one. I
Hey.
love to cut grass.
But do you push it or do you just ride it?
Either or.
Okay, yeah. I like to ride. I like to ride the riding lawnmowers. But anyways, so moving on to more of some of the serious stuff of this podcast, really what we want to get into. And the first question I want to ask kind of hits home with me and my raising and things like this. But do you think that bringing your child to Sunday school is important? And really, how it makes a difference in a child's walk with the Lord?
Yes, I think Sunday school is very important. My Aunt Gladys is who actually picked me up and took me to Sunday school before my mom and dad got involved in church. And that relationship that I started to grow with people and to learn about God really started in the 3rd and 4th grade.
Mm-hmm.
And then my mom started going and my dad started going. It's kind of, I think a kid, when a kid wants to go to church, it does encourage the parent to come to church too, if they're not in church. But for those parents that are in church, I think I hate to use the word vital, but I do think it's vital that your kids are in Sunday school, because that's where they learn about who Jesus is. They learn about the Bible. They learn about missions. They learn about, scripture. They learn how to pray. And so I think that Sunday school is very, very, very important. And I know you got to get up and come and all that, but it's worth it. If it's worth getting up to go to your job, it's worth getting up to come to Sunday school.
Yeah.
Welcome to the New Covenant Podcast News. A few things for you guys to be watching out for. Number one, let's start out with Royal Rangers. That's every Wednesday night, K through 6th grade boys, 6:30 to 7:30. Worship with us on Sunday at 10:30 a.m., which is always great. Let's not forget the Jubilee on October the 19th at 10:30, which we will be celebrating our 50 years of the New Covenant Church, which is awesome. And also, podcast releases every Monday. So let's look forward to that, and let's get back to the podcast.
A regular church is great. Mm-hmm. And I think God can teach a child a lot in regular church service, but I think they really learn in Sunday school.
Well, they're with their peers, and you have, hopefully, your teachers are kid-friendly. They like kids. I know we have had people just step in and do because we've needed. But most people that are in kids ministry are called to kids ministry.
Right.
So you have people that really have a heart for just sitting down and listening to them, or just being a part of who they are and encouraging them. So there is that spiritual aspect, but there's also a physical and an emotional aspect where they get to be with their peers and they're learning together. They know, hey, he goes to church with me at school, so you don't feel by yourself.
Right.
You don't feel like you're the only one that's trying to live a Christian life because you've got a friend or friends that are a part of that too.
Yeah. Now, you said earlier that it's, good to see a child that likes to come to Sunday school. Would you say that's the most rewarding part of children's ministry, or is there more, more that may be rewarding for you? Or
Well, it is good that they want to be here, and that is rewarding. But when you see them, when it's like that aha moment, and they get that I need Jesus, no matter how old they are, when they have that revelation that, hey, he's real, and I need that, and I want that, and you get to share that with them and lead them to the Lord, that is the most rewarding part of it.
Yeah.
And that's why a lot of times the kids that come here, whose parents come here, will do I always go to the parent when a kid wants to make a decision. I always go to them and let them know, hey, this is what happened today. Y'all talk about it more. If we need to talk more, we can sit down. Y'all go ahead and lead them to the Lord. Don't wait for me,
Right.
because I think what greater joy is that than a parent to be able to share that with your kid, to much more important than ball and all the activities that we get caught in. But to be able to share Jesus with them and encourage them in that part of their life is of great value. And to me, that's what I see that makes me feel the most rewarded, is to see when the kids come to know Jesus.
Yeah, it's kind of strikes your heart in a different way, because I have many nephews. I couldn't even remember how many, honestly, and one niece. And, when they come up to you just randomly and say, I love you, it's just, it just tears your heart up.
Yeah.
So I could only imagine if a child, came to me in a more serious manner, was like, I love Jesus. It would just be, I don't even know if I would be able to say anything. I would just start crying.
Well, the hugs are good too. When kids love you and they come, you can be your worst day and a kid runs up to you and, hey, Miss Juju, because a lot of them call me Juju. Hey, or I love you. And that's just a kid to do that is so rewarding. So.
And it really reminds me that, we need to be like that towards our Father, because we're not. The older we get, we're just not like that. But we need to get back to that. The Bible actually says something about that, of being, a heart like a child, just loving your Father. And it's just so sweet. But the last question of this podcast, and really where I want to stay for a minute, because there's a lot to learn inside of this, is, some say that, teaching children is harder than teaching adults, because, a child's mind is really not developed. I can sit there and have a conversation with an adult, and my learning knowledge and things like that, or I can just say, hey, go to this scripture right here, and you can learn a lot, because they can actually read and understand and things like that. But a child, a little bit different tactics that you have to use to be able to help them understand. So with your experience, you've been doing it how long now?
Long time.
Yeah, 15 years? Almost, 15, 16 years.
20 years, yeah.
What are some tips or tricks that you found that, helps and makes teaching children about Jesus a little easier?
Most important is be prepared. If it's my responsibility, my turn to teach, I need to have prepared. And I know that kind of sounds silly, but I think a lot of times we find, I'm just teaching kids. I know the story of Moses. I know the story of Noah. So I'm just going to cold turkey go in there and just teach them what I know. No, it doesn't work that way because they know if you're not prepared. And they will ask questions and they will push those limits with you. So being prepared is vital. And that's something that we really talk about in our kids ministry with all our teachers. This is a serious thing. It's not just babysitting. This is here's your lesson. Make sure you've reviewed it. You know where you're going with it and what you want to say. And if you have a question, don't be afraid to say, I don't know the answer, but we'll get back with you. Just putting kids off or just saying, it's okay, you'll understand one day. That doesn't work with kids. That just turns them off. So being prepared, I think is super duper important in kids ministry and teaching kids ministry and teaching kids, is to just be available and be open. Because sometimes you need that little bit of time just to talk and laugh and have fun together before you start into class, and to end class in that way, too, so that they are, it's a whole picture and not just we're going to come in here and sit down and be still and not do anything but just listen to me. I welcome their feedback. I welcome their questions. And so I think being prepared, listening, making the class fun, playing games, those are important. We learn from games. Adults learn from games. That's why the phone is so valuable to adults, is because we got all these fun games we can play and not do anything else. So, but I do believe that I never seen kids ministry as hard. In fact, I prefer kids ministry, teaching kids over adults, because with kids, they are so open to listen. And if you mess up or if you say something wrong, very important that you correct it, but they're forgiving of that.
Right.
And it's easier to help them to understand, hey, I wasn't quite right on that. So this is what the word says, and this is the right answer. Number one question I always get in kids ministry: is it wrong for me to watch certain things on TV or listen to certain things on radio or
That's
music?
a great question, though.
And my answer, I've tried my answer to I always let my answer be, let's sit down and let's talk, let's ask God about it. So if I'm listening to this song or I'm watching this on TV, what is that doing to my spirit? What is it making me think about? Is it making me think about things that are good and positive, or is it making me think of things that are not? And so, just again, it's just being willing to just be honest with them and say, hey, let's talk to the Father about it. That's why I love, that's the easiest part to me with kids ministry.
I find it interesting, though, because you said you've never found it hard, but that really fits in because you're called to do it,
Yeah, that's the difference.
Because if I really think about it, and I think about the children's pastor that I grew up with, I wouldn't even begin to start, because he was writing plays and all kinds of crazy stuff just to be able to help the children understand, because a lot of them are more visual learners, where we go into service and we just listen to a sermon, and that's where we soak it up, or we go watch a YouTube video, or you listen to a podcast, or you just you read the Bible. A child is a little bit different. You got to go different little alleyways, but if you love to do it, it's not hard for you. So.
And that's a big part of our teaching, our backstage. Well, even our Sunday school, our Sunday school is designed different now than it used to be, but we have 3 teachers, and we divide up based on how many kids we have. If we have a big crowd, we divide up into 3. If it's a small crowd, we divide up in 2. But we have a missions class, then we have a Bible class, and then we have a prayer scripture class. And each group spends 10 minutes rotating through. And that has really, really been good for our kids, because they don't have time to get bored. Right. And our kids
that's another thing, you got to hold their attention.
And so they and I feel like they learn because it's exciting, because they know, I'm going to do something. I've done this, and our teachers are great. We have fantastic teachers in our kids ministry. And then in backstage, we have same thing. We divide off into groups, but then we come back and we have what's called a good book look. And the good book look is kind of a review of what we learned, and we try to use object lessons, things that make it fun to keep their attention. Because by then they've been here for 2.5, 3 hours, so they're tired and ready to go home, or ready to play, or ready to eat. So we have to find ways to, just keep them a little bit longer. And so that's good. So object lessons, visual, all that's fantastic ways to learn.
Yeah. I kudos to you, because children's ministry can be hard for someone that just kind of like me. I'm thinking more of talking and things like that, but you have to go around different alleyways, and
it is hard. It's not. I don't want to say it's not hard.
Yeah.
I mean, with anything, you have to prepare
and work at it. Yeah.
So if I didn't do that, I would find myself in a whole different place.
Yeah. And you got to have a lot more patience, too.
True.
But real quick, I know we're wrapping this thing up, and we've been at it for a good bit, but I want to spend a little segment on you talking about Royal Rangers. So can you just tell us who that is, how it came about, and how could someone in the community get their child involved with it?
Okay. Thankfully, we have administrators that have taken on that role. in the church. So I'm just kind of more of an overseer of that just because it does fall under kids ministry. But Royal Rangers is a program, I don't like the word program, a ministry for boys. It actually starts preschool, but we're doing K through 6th grade. But there is material for pre-K through high school. But it's a lot like Cub Scouts, Boy Scouts. It's a club, basically, that they join and they're a part of, and they meet regularly. We meet on Wednesday nights at 6:15 for our group. They divide off into their age groups, and there's fun, there's activity, there's patriotism. They learn, they pledge to the flag, the Bible, the Christian life. There's all parts of that they're learning about what is it to be a Christian, what is it to be a godly man. How do we help these young boys get to be, followers of Christ? So that's kind of how I see Royal Rangers. It's just another way to help our boys to grow into the men that God has called them to be. And so we've just started Wednesday nights. You just show up here at the church.
Just show up, no registration, just show up.
Well, there is registration in that we know we need information on your child.
Right.
So the first time you come, if you're not a member here, then you would need to come in and fill out the registration information just so that we have your information for contact. If there's any allergies or if there's things we need to know about your kid. But it's from 6:15 to 7:30 every Wednesday night. And we had our kickoff, and we've had our first Wednesday night teaching, and the boys all came out looking excited and like they'd had a good time. And the girls are loving it.
That's good.
They say it's so peaceful in the classroom now.
Because there's no boys.
Because there's no boys. And the boys are marching up and down the hall saying, "No more girls. No more girls." So, but anyway, it's fun. It's just, it's a ministry opportunity to help boys grow into men of God.
That's great.
Basically.
And, you use the word Cub Scouts when, growing up, we all know what Cub Scouts is, and kind of it's feathered away. It's really, I think there may be some, but not a lot. So it's cool that you've started that. It's a really good need.
Yeah, and they do things like that. I mean, they'll have fishing trips, camp outs, opportunity to do all kinds of different things like that where they involve the parent or a guardian, so that, it's a family event, not just a group of people from church taking off a group of kids.
Right.
The family is involved. So that's good.
That's good. Well, Jill, it's been great to have you. I want to finish out on a scripture because it was in my heart to say it, because we talked about having a heart of a child. So I want to finish the podcast with Matthew 18:2-5. It says, "He called a little child and had him stand among them. And he said, I tell you truth, unless you change and become like little children, you will never enter the kingdom of heaven. Therefore, whoever humbles himself like this child is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven. Whoever welcomes a little child like this in my name welcomes me." A lot of power in that. Miss Jill, thank you for coming on the podcast. It's been great. I'm so thankful that we have someone like you in our children's ministry.
Oh, thanks.
So, all right, well,
We'll give God glory.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So that's it for this podcast. Thank you for listening, and we'll see y'all next week.